up, everyone? This is Jacob Levy from Podabilities, episode number 5. Today, I have a very special guest, Nicole Rollins, who's actually a former client. She is the director of sales at Fast Democracy, a SaaS company in the GovTech sector. Nicole, welcome.
Hi, Jacob. Thanks for having me on today.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining me. I know we had a little technical difficulties. Basically, the whole world is on Zoom right now, so makes sense. So I thought we would just get started with a couple basic questions. If you want to just introduce yourself, who you are,
Sure.
the many hats you wear, things like that.
Well, hello, everybody. I am Nicole Rollins, like Jacob said, and just to give a little plug to Jacob, he is amazing at what he does. So keep doing what you're doing, Jacob, because you're doing great things. It's exciting to watch. So, but yes, I am affected by disabilities in that my son has cerebral palsy, and he was diagnosed pretty late, I'd say around 5 to 7 years old, and is now 21. So I've kind of gone through the whole process of having a child that has disabilities and going through. And so, I just thought it would be a good idea to kind of share my experience. So if other parents are out there kind of just starting in the process, that they, may get some answers and a little bit of help, if it helps at all. I don't know.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure you will add tons of value. There are a few things that you mentioned that you wanted to just talk about, like in terms of bullet points. First off, how to advocate for your child. You want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that is the most important thing you can do when you have a child with disabilities is be their advocate, because no one knows them like you do, and you're going to have a lot of people telling you what you should do and how things should be done, but you know best. So just kind of remember that, because coming into this world, it can be very intimidating if you've never been in it and you've never experienced experts from all arenas and coming in and telling you, okay, you need to do this and do it this way, and this is what's going to go forward. And so just coming from a parent's perspective, I think it's important to just remember to trust your gut, because no one knows your child better than you do. So yes, take the expert's advice, go to the specialist, the therapist, etc. But always remember, you truly know what's best for your child. And so always don't be afraid or intimidated to kind of speak your voice and give your opinion on what you think is the best course of action after you've gathered the information.
Absolutely. And I just thought of this acronym. I'm all about acronyms just for like remembering information. Actually, I thought about it from a sales perspective, like ABC, always be closing. But for a parent, ABC, always be curious. Right?
True.
Ask a million questions, like don't ever assume, just because a licensed professional gives you information. Well, that's nice, but you're with your child 24/7, pretty much.
Right.
So always be curious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember, from my son's birth all the way through, there were so many times where I just felt intimidated because I didn't know how to deal with the environment. He was a preemie. So he was, from the days he was in the NICU, to like, can I touch my child? Can I pick him up? Can I and your instincts as a parent want to take over, but you're scared and you're not sure how to handle the situation. So like you said, ABC, that's perfect in this case, because you need to ask a lot of questions and get answers, because like you said, you don't know how to navigate, especially if you've never dealt with anything like this.
Absolutely. And I imagine there's got to be like, I guess call it like an internal struggle, like person versus self. Like you as a person and you as a parent, your instincts kick in.
Yeah.
Your maternal instincts, your human instincts, things like that. Okay, awesome. What about when you mentioned earlier, or not on this call, but in terms of you started a life skills class?
Yeah, so that's something I'm really proud of. And again, that goes back to advocacy, because once, when your children are 0 to 5 and you're dealing with a disability, it's really in your hands in your home. But once they get to the school age, right, then it kind of falls out of your hands. And now so many other people are working with them and not in front of you, right? They're in the school and you're dealing with IEPs and all different types of things at the school level. So what I found was Fortunately, my son has a very mild case of CP, so he was able to integrate into public school, and we decided to go with a charter school, which I'm very, very happy with that decision because I had with the charter school, charter public school, so of course was free, so it wasn't costly. But the thing that was great, it was you really truly could be an advocate because there's a lot of parent volunteering that was required, so I could really be a part of his plan and really physically be there if need be. And then as he got older and went through the school system, when he got to the high school level, there's a couple of things that with him, unfortunately, when it came to say something like math that has multiple steps, it was something that, yes, there was accommodations, but it was something that was really just not going to happen for him. We had to come to terms with, we're not going to get to algebra and, in higher levels of math with him because of those disabilities, right? Learning disabilities. So I had to think of something like, what can I do that's really going to help him really integrate into society once he graduates? And so I was thinking life skills. Like, what are the things we don't teach our kids that they need to know? It could be something as simple as going to a grocery store with a list and budgeting your money. Figure out how to, file a tax return, how to put together a resume. I mean, even simple stuff like, is this kind of delegating and figuring out where they can ask for help and where they can do things on their own. Some of these kids might not be able to drive. It may not be something in their future. With my son, thankfully, he hasn't done the license yet, but he's getting to the point where he wants to now, and he's 21, so finally. But he can, which we're fortunate. But a lot of these kids, can't drive or won't be able to drive. And so figuring out ways, different routes, like bus routes and, different types of transportation. Now we have Uber and Lyft, of course. So there's a lot of opportunity now for them to get from A to B. But so these are the things, the life skills class that we kind of came up with. And I went to the school and advocated for that. And we were able to get it going at the high school, which is great. And again, it's a charter high school. So I think that helped in being able to make that kind of change. So very proud of that because that was, I think, a really great experience. He loved the class and he learned a lot from it.
That's awesome. Yeah, speaking of charter schools, I didn't go to a charter school. I went to a public school my whole life. But now I'm working as a special education teacher in a charter school.
Yay!
So there's a ton of autonomy in terms of like how to create programs, and they're very open. I don't think they have to jump through as many hoops.
Right.
It's more run like a business.
Yes.
Really. Yeah. So I love what you said about, sort of going an alternate path. Because my whole saying is like a disability is not an inability to do something. I see it as taking an alternate path to arrive at a similar solution.
Right.
And in my opinion, just to finish that off, this is where innovation exists. When you go that alternate path, you're trying to arrive to the same solution like your peers. But you go an alternate path, whether it's an accommodation or a modification or a life skills class.
Right.
That's where things happen, going a different path.
Absolutely. I think when you're dealing with a disability, you always are having to reroute and change course and figure out different ways to get to the same solution, like you said. So, it could be as simple as my son has a hard time with multiple steps and memory recall. So I remember when he was little, we'd be at a restaurant and, well, not little, but he could go to the restroom on his own, right? But it's like, how do you get back to the table when he'd come back? And say, if you're in a place, like, okay, where were we sitting? Where was that? Where's our car? If you go into the parking lot, like things like that were difficult for him. And so figuring out ways to help him remember. And I know you talked about something that I think could be very helpful. And that is how you add music to help kids with disabilities. So, maybe if you could drop that in, because that to me seems very helpful.
Yeah. And it's, I've been doing this since I was 10 years old. I'm 37 now.
Yeah.
I will not, Jacob. I know I am an old man. Thanks, Nicole. I will not say that it will work for everyone. I won't say that. What I will say is that it is one tool in your box of tools, in your toolbox, right? You have to try many different things. Just because the research says, do this. Well, that's nice. It doesn't, like in special education, one size will never fit all. I don't care what the data says. So you have to try a lot of different things. music is one thing. Mnemonics work really well for me. Growing up with a learning disability, I like to compartmentalize things like in my schema or in my prior knowledge. So like, for example, like you mentioned, trying to get back from the restroom back to somebody's seat.
Yeah.
I did a similar thing where like my mom told me to like, I need you to get bread, eggs, and detergent at the grocery store. So in my head, I'm thinking the mnemonic BED for bread, eggs, and detergent. I took it a step further, and bread, eggs, and detergent is 6 syllables. So is the cheesy dance tune "Everybody Dance Now" from the 90s.
Yes.
So it matches. You got bread, eggs, and detergent. So that's just one way to do it. I really dated myself right there, but yeah.
No. I'm right with you. Okay.
So yeah,
Gosh,
there's so many different ways to do it. Directions, navigating, formulas in school. They're all like, there's all ways to truncate information. And I feel like, yeah, music's one way, but as a macro concept, figuring out a way to take information and truncating it in a way to help you remember it.
Yeah, it's very, very helpful. And I also think a lot of these kids really gravitate towards music. I know my son was huge. He's a major music fan, and he's an old soul. So he likes things from like the 40s. He'll be listening to music that I've never even heard. But it really, I can tell it's very powerful for him. And, you know, even in school, like he'd be one of those people that would put his music in his earbuds and walk around the halls and just like, it just calmed him, I think. So music is powerful, I think, in the disability world, especially. So
absolutely. One more thing about, because you got me going about music.
I knew I would, Jacob.
I just love music. The reason why I think it could be so helpful for people with disabilities, any disability, whether it's cognitive or physical disability,
right?
Music is to a pattern. It doesn't matter what the genre is. You have a phrase, like a hook of a song, and then it repeats and it repeats and it repeats and repeats. So having this repetition, for example, people with autism, they work on a schedule, right? Someone with a learning disability, things need to be repeated, a sequence. So music is literally a sequence, pressing repeat, pressing repeat, pressing repeat. So any way that can be applied to learning could be awesome. I did not come up with that. The most basic example is the alphabet song. It's actually, it's a Mozart tune. It's an old Mozart tune, and somebody had the foresight to apply it to a nursery rhyme. I don't know if you know, do you know what the nursery rhyme is for the alphabet song?
No.
It is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Really?
Yeah, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, twinkle, twinkle, little star. So it's the same thing.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, so someone had the foresight to apply a simple song to academics for memory retrieval. So
very cool.
People have been doing it forever. I think it's just like a little bit of outside of the box thinking, and going that alternate path.
Yep, which is part of our daily lives, right?
Yes, ma'am. All right, so let's get back to you. So you were talking about life skills class, which sounds awesome. And then what about like mentorship?
Yes, so I think that is really what my goal was today in joining your show, was to kind of reach out and let people know that there are people out there that have gone through similar things that you may be going through, and people that are at the other end, right? Their kids are grown or they've gone through it all, and to kind of reach out, because I wish, you know, this is 21 years ago, obviously, when my son was born, but I had really, really would have loved to have someone that I could have reached out to, a parent, not a speech therapist, occupational therapist. I mean, they're all wonderful, believe me, but that parent to parent conversation where you can be real and you can ask questions like, will my kid ever be able to ride a bike? What was your experience? How did you do? I mean, simple things, but stuff that you're going to ask another parent, right? So I wish I would have had that. And nowadays we have so many ways to reach out because there's so many resources. So one thing that I did, I'm sure, I know you're familiar with the Mom Project, but they have some really great boards and forums on their website, and it's a great company anyway for women and for moms. And so I did go on there and was able to connect with another mom who was just starting in her experience. Her son's one. And so it was really nice to connect. We connected online and off. And it's nice to be able to have kind of be a mentor. So for people out there that are on the other end, like I am now, to be able to reach out to people that are just starting out and be there for them as a support system. So that's something I want to do to give back to other parents, and hopefully other people will want to do the same. And for parents that are just starting out, to know that, really reach out to people in your sim situation, because there's so many tools now online, because they will be able to give you more of that, mom to mom advice or parent to parent. And I'm sure a lot of dads want advice just as much as moms, during this process. So.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're absolutely right. There are so many resources. Parents, I mean, parents are definitely very proactive with their children, but just, reach out. There's an abundance of resources, and specifically, I would call parents like primary sources versus secondary sources. They are the ones that deal with it every day, day in, day out. Yes, medical professionals do as well, but there's things that they don't see that parents see every day.
Right. And there's just so many questions that, it's scary, right? Because, at the very beginning, you don't know what the course is going to be. And you don't know, will my child be able to integrate into the school system? Will they be able to, live on their own? I mean, there's all things. And of course, every child's different. So me telling you my experience isn't going to be the same for you, but at least it's someone that you can, kind of push ideas back and forth and figure out, what was your experience and what will my path be? And, again, it's unique for every child, but it's really great to have someone to run things by.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couple more questions. Are there any, is there any specific story that you want to tell about your experience? Or I'll give you another choice. What do you wish the general population would be more aware of in terms of disabilities?
Well, I think for me as a parent, and this is coming from super heartfelt, but when you have a child with disabilities, one of the biggest things that you worry about is, will they fit in? Will other kids like them? Will they have friends? Will they be made fun of? I mean, that was a huge concern of mine. I remember asking, because when you're going to a charter school, you tend to get close even to the teachers, to other parents, you're volunteering a lot. So I would, is my son sitting next to someone at lunch? Does he have someone to play with? I mean, so to be aware, and to maybe, if your kid, if your child does not have a disability, to maybe, talk about it and encourage, because if kids are different, just to keep them very open-minded and teach your kids to include everyone, which I'm sure every parent does, but just maybe having conversations with your kids. So, because that was I just like to think that my child might be sitting alone at the lunch table or go out to recess and have no one to play with. I mean, it seriously would break my heart. So, I mean, coming from a mom and just you want your kid to have someone to hang out with, even if it's just one person. And luckily he did. As he got older, I noticed he became more on his own. And I don't know if it's because he felt through high school, elementary school, he was good to go, junior high. And then in high school, he did become more independent. But that almost, I think, was more his choice at that age than it was, people isolating him. So, but just knowing that your kids have friends and that other kids are open-minded to talking to kids of all types, ages, everything.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think it's super important what you just mentioned earlier about, it's really just like education. There are, for general ed peers, young children, they just don't know, that student walks a little funny, or, they're flapping their hands or whatever. And some of these actions, these behaviors, they can't help it. Right. So I think it's just, like you said, they just need to be educated to know, this person's a little different. They do X, Y, and Z, but hey, I can still sit with them at the lunch table and hang out. Maybe we have 17 things in common.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think at some charter schools you might find, and I don't know about public schools, but you might find more integration with kids with disabilities because parents are searching for that environment of kids with disabilities. So I know in my son's class, he was general ed, so he didn't have any disabilities, but we had a couple of kids with autism, that we're pushing into a classroom environment. And so just even with my son, my youngest, going over with him, like, make sure, you're including this person and talking to them and making them feel comfortable. So just whether your kid has disabilities or not, just, having those conversations and making sure they're aware of not everyone's the same, which they're going to find throughout their entire life, right?
Absolutely. And it just reminded me, there's a great quote, I always like post it, but by Oscar Wilde, be yourself, everyone else is taken.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, like students, I mean, I think for the most part, kids will be kids, but I think every day they're like learning about themselves, learning about other people. So what I would also say is, like, as a teacher, as a parent, as a person with a disability, don't make it a taboo subject. Like, be open about it.
Don't talk about that child,
Yeah, it's
because
not hush hush. It's
it's not.
It's not like politics. It's not like your politics. It's just, this is human nature, and this is
right.
The reality of the world, and it's very common. I would say, I don't know the exact statistic, but at least in the workforce, 1 billion plus people worldwide have disabilities, visible or invisible. So
that's crazy. Wow. And
absolutely.
I do have a quote too. So this just for my son, as just a little nod to him. But what I noticed, and I'm sure this goes for almost every kid with a disability, but their ability to push forward and work so hard in order to get to the same result is just mind-boggling to me. And he's been doing that since he was a baby, right? Like always having to work harder, whether it was to get his head to straight and be straight, because it was always when he was a baby, or, walking was that much harder for him. Learning ABCs, everything was just more of a challenge, but he always had an amazing attitude. And so this quote from Winston Churchill reminds me of just the situation, and this is my son, but success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. And that to me, like, embodies my son and his attitude going through life with challenges,
Absolutely. And this is why I totally agree. And this is why I say that, in my opinion, people with disabilities, we make some of the hardest, toughest, grittiest entrepreneurs.
Yes, creative, right? You have to be
creative, but we get knocked down and we get right back up. Like every day we get knocked down, and and it's just, I think the fact that if everybody can understand that failure it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because it is a simple ingredient to success. It's a mandatory ingredient to success. If you once you understand that failure is just part of the process, you're unstoppable. So I think people with disabilities, we get that every day from the get-go, like every day.
Yep.
So absolutely. All right. So this is awesome. I love this. One last question. If you could write something on a bumper sticker that you want to let the world know, whether it's people with disabilities or the general population, what would you say?
Well, you got to keep it short and sweet, because it can't fit on a bumper sticker unless it is. So I would say the most important thing for me for kids with disabilities would be, don't hesitate, advocate. And just always remember that going through all the years that you're going to go through this with your child, is just advocate. Don't hesitate, advocate.
That is wonderful. And I remember you mentioned that last time. That has to be another hashtag next to Nicole Sassy Sales, I would say.
Oh, there you go. Yes. People will be confused though.
Well, yeah. But that's a really clever, bold statement. And that is a perfect length on a bumper sticker.
Yes. Nice and short.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. Once again, Nicole Rollins, Director of Sales at Fast Democracy, a SaaS company in the GovTech space. She is a mom, a director of sales, just a mom warrior, awesome client. Nicole, I'm so grateful to have you on, and the internet worked and everything.
Yay! We had sound.
Absolutely. So yeah, Nicole Rollins, this is Jacob Levy from Podabilities, signing out.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.